Rafael grew up in a tiny fishing town on the southern coast of the Philippines, a place where mornings always smelled like seawater and wood smoke. Life was hard in ways most people outside his village would never understand. His father worked long hours on a small, aging fishing boat, and some days they came home with barely enough catch to sell. His mother washed clothes for neighbors to add a few extra pesos to the family budget. Still, despite the constant struggle, their home never lacked laughter. What they lacked in money, they made up for in love. Rafael, though only 16, carried a gentle maturity shaped by years of watching his parents fight through life's challenges without ever giving up hope. Music became his escape from the heaviness that hung over their daily routine. After school, he often climbed up to the rooftop of their small bamboo and tin house, where he could see the ocean stretching out endlessly toward the horizon. Up there, he sang to the wind, old Filipino ballads, American classics he learned from a neighbor's cracked radio, and songs he made up on the spot about life, love, and dreams too big for his village. His voice had a purity, an innocence that seemed untouched by hardship, yet every note carried a depth that came from living through it. Even his teachers said he didn't just sing, he told stories. One afternoon, a volunteer from a local youth program filmed Rafael singing a Whitney Houston song on the rooftop. She uploaded it to Facebook, thinking it might inspire a few people. Instead, the video began spreading far beyond their island. Within a week, it reached an AGT talent scout in Los Angeles. When the email invitation arrived, Rafael thought it was a joke. His parents thought it was a scam. But when the producers followed up with a video call, everything suddenly became real. The whole neighborhood came together to help. Someone paid for his travel papers, someone else lent a suitcase, and the church held a fundraiser so he could buy clothes that didn't look worn out. On the day he left, the entire fishing community gathered at the small provincial airport, cheering and crying as he boarded the plane. Flying to America felt like leaving Earth itself, and he pressed his forehead against the window the whole way, promising himself he would make this chance worth every sacrifice. When he arrived at the AGT studio in California, the world felt impossibly large and loud. The bright lights, the high ceilings, the camera crews rushing around, it all made him feel small. Backstage, he clutched the old jacket his mother had given him, the fabric thin but comforting. He waited hours before his audition slot was called, rehearsing quietly to keep his nerves steady. When a crew member finally told him to walk onto the stage, his heart pounded so hard he thought the judges might hear it. The audience stared, the cameras blinked red, but when he spoke, his soft voice filled the room with something tender, and the judges leaned forward, sensing the story behind him. He chose a song that reminded him of home, a ballad full of hope and heartbreak. As soon as he started singing, every fear melted away. His voice trembled at first, then grew stronger, smoother, more confident. The theater grew so quiet that even the lights seemed to hold their breath. People in the audience were wiping away tears by the first chorus. Simon raised his eyebrows, stunned by the purity of Rafael's tone, while Sophia whispered to Heidi that this boy had something truly rare. When he hit the final high note, the crowd erupted into a standing ovation so loud it echoed through the whole building. Rafael stood frozen, overwhelmed, unsure whether to smile or cry. Simon told him he had a spirit in his voice that can't be taught, and the judges gave him 4 easy yeses. The next morning, his audition exploded online, shooting past 1 million views before he even woke up. Back home, people crowded around phones and televisions, cheering as Rafael's name spread across the world. His life, it seemed, had changed overnight. Rafael never expected that one performance could change his life so drastically, but the days after his audition felt like a whirlwind he could barely keep up with. Messages poured into his phone from people all over the world, teachers, singers, parents, students, telling him how his voice made them cry, how his story inspired them, how they were praying for him. Reporters reached out, local TV stations in the Philippines wanted interviews, and his entire province practically treated him like a young hero. But with the sudden fame came pressure he had never felt before. People expected him to stay perfect, stay humble, stay talented, stay strong. And Rafael, who had barely ever traveled outside his small town, found himself trying to understand how to be all of that while also simply being a 16-year-old boy overwhelmed by a dream coming true too fast. AGT producers assigned him a vocal coach, a soft-spoken woman named Elena who taught him breathing techniques, posture control, and how to protect his voice under stress. She quickly realized he carried not just talent, but emotional weight. Sometimes, after long rehearsals, she found him sitting alone with his head down, missing home, worried about his father's health, unsure if he deserved all this attention. She would tell him he didn't need to be perfect, he only needed to be honest. Raphael took her words to heart, especially as the quarterfinals approached. The night of the live show, he felt like his chest couldn't hold everything: nerves, hope, fear, excitement, homesickness, and a quiet determination that kept his hands from shaking too much. When the stage manager gave him the cue, Raphael walked out under the blazing lights, the kind that erase everything except the moment you're standing in. He chose to perform a stripped-down acoustic version of a classic American hit, one he connected with deeply because the lyrics reminded him of his parents' sacrifices. A single guitarist sat behind him, and from the very first note, the room fell into a silence so complete it felt sacred. His voice, soft and trembling at first, grew fuller and more confident as he reached the chorus. The audience swayed, some with tears streaming down their cheeks. Even the judges seemed mesmerized. When he finished, the applause was thunderous, rolling through the arena like a wave. Reaction videos shot up across TikTok and Instagram within minutes. People called it the most beautiful performance of the season. Simon told him he had delivered, a moment America will not forget, and by the next morning, he was trending in over a dozen countries. Preparing for the semifinals, however, took everything Raphael had left. The weight of expectations grew heavier. Fans from home told him he was carrying the pride of the Philippines. People online debated his chances. Commentators praised his voice but warned him that pressure could break even the strongest performers. Raphael pushed himself harder, rehearsing late into the night until his throat hurt and his eyes burned from exhaustion. Producers noticed he was wearing down, so they designed a performance that felt closer to his heart, a stage that resembled his village shoreline, with soft blue lights, ocean sounds, and a gentle breeze created by hidden fans. When he stepped onto that set during dress rehearsal, he froze. It looked like home. For the first time in weeks, he felt grounded. On the night of the semifinals, as the music began, he took a deep breath and imagined his father's voice telling him to sing like he was speaking to God. His performance was emotional in a way he couldn't control, raw and overflowing with everything he'd been carrying. By the time he hit the final note, Simon was staring at him like he had never heard anything like it. Sophia whispered that it was a perfect moment. The crowd stood before the judges even said a word. Backstage, Raphael finally let his tears fall, drained but relieved. When results night came and his name was called for the finals, the entire auditorium erupted, and Raphael collapsed into a hug with Elena, knowing he was now one step away from the biggest night of his life. The finals felt like a different universe compared to everything Raphael had experienced before. The studio looked enormous, almost unreal, with sweeping spotlights crossing through the air like they were searching for stars. Backstage, the energy buzzed, dancers stretching, musicians tuning instruments, camera crews moving quickly in every direction. Raphael stood off to the side, hands tucked in his pockets, quietly rehearsing under his breath. He wasn't just nervous, he was terrified. This was the moment millions were waiting for, the moment that could change his entire life once again. He knew people back home had organized watch parties in barangay halls, schools, beaches, even tiny sari-sari stores with old televisions. Everyone wanted him to shine. For the finals, Raphael chose something risky, a Filipino English medley that honored both his roots and his growth as an artist. The vocal coach encouraged him, telling him that people fall in love with truth, and nothing was more truthful than singing from where he came from. When the stage manager called his name, Raphael stepped onto the platform surrounded by rising fog and soft golden lights. The orchestra behind him looked like something out of a movie. As the music began, he closed his eyes and let the first lyric roll out soft and controlled. With each verse, his voice grew stronger, floating through the air like a prayer. When he transitioned into the Filipino lyrics, the audience gasped at the beauty of the language, many hearing it for the first time. The high notes near the end soared with a power he didn't even know he had. People stood up long before he finished the song. When the final chord faded, the crowd exploded into applause louder than any he had ever heard. The judges rose to their feet instantly. Sophia pressed her hands to her heart, Heidi wiped a tear, and Simon leaned forward with a smile that said everything. He told Raphael that he didn't just sing, he created a global moment, one of those performances that will live online forever. Raphael felt his knees weaken. Backstage, crew members hugged him, contestants congratulated him, and social media erupted into a frenzy. Overnight, the performance became one of AGT's fastest-spreading videos, gaining millions of views in hours. On results night, Raphael stood among the finalists, hands trembling as he waited for the announcement. He didn't take home the grand prize, but the reaction he received felt bigger than any trophy. The world had already chosen him. After AGT, everything around Raphael shifted almost instantly. Record labels from the United States, South Korea, and the Philippines reached out offering deals. Producers wanted interviews, talk shows requested appearances, and a documentary team pitched a feature about his journey from poverty to global recognition. But the moment he stepped off the plane returning home, none of that mattered. Thousands of people were waiting for him at the airport, kids waving handmade signs, mothers crying with pride, elderly neighbors cheering his name. As he walked through the crowd, he saw his parents standing at the front,